Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Robin Gibson. I'm Marketing Director at Kortext. In this session for the next 40 minutes, we are going to be looking to the future, and we're looking at trends, skills and knowledge needed to keep ahead as business leaders. I'm joined by Tim, Elisabetta and Heini, who I will introduce in just a second. And then just to introduce myself, I'm Marketing Director at Kortext. Kortext is a student learning and content engagement platform. Our purpose is to enable universities in your mission to educate the next generation of difference makers. And we do this by providing a personalized, fairly embedded online learning space, individual bookshelf, allowing students to study anytime, anywhere, to connect and collaborate, and academics to connect with students, and also delivering insightful data to assess student progress. If I just could go through the panel and get you to introduce yourselves, and starting with Tim.
Okay, so my name is Tim Ackermann. I'm Director of Global Talent Acquisition at a company called Oda. Outside of Norway, I'm not sure if everyone heard of that. It's an online grocery delivery market leader in Norway, and we're now entering the European market, and then we scale worldwide, which is a story you hear from every start and scale up in the Berlin area. So I'm based in Berlin. Spent 25 plus years in HR and talent acquisition in blue chip companies such as Microsoft, Lidl, Swarovski. And it's lifelong learning for me as well. So I now moved really into a small scale-up environment, very fast pace. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tim. Welcome, Tim. If I go to Elisabetta.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elisabetta Galli. I am currently Human Resources Vice President in Galli International. I have a background as clinical psychologist, and actually I worked in the clinical environment at the beginning of my career. Then I stepped into the enterprise environment, and I really love it from the very beginning. So I matured very important experiences across different industries, always in multinational global companies with a strong presence. And so many years in Johnson & Johnson, where I had the opportunity to move in to different sectors, so healthcare and medical devices, Janssen Pharmaceuticals, etc. Then Wolters Kluwer, a company who had the task in that moment to digitalize the business, coming from a totally traditional business. So it has been a fantastic experience for me. Then I stepped into the, let's say, renewable energy industry, working for Lightsource PP in human resources always, and currently in Culligan. What I can say along this, if I think about this career, many years of career, is that the purpose is very important. So what I really loved in J&J and in Lightsource PP and in Culligan now is having a strong purpose. So protecting the environment, protecting the planet, taking care of the life of people, impacting positively life of people. And I think this is really something that is very close to my heart. I'm very happy to be here. I hope I can share the long experience I have with recruiting and managing MBAs, so brilliant people coming from the best schools across the globe. Thank you so much.
I certainly concur on that commitment to purpose, Elisabetta. And finally, Heini.
Really pleased to be here. I'm Heini Utunen, currently leading the World Health Organization's learning response to COVID-19 and the Health Emergencies Learning Unit. And I come from the United Nations, therefore from non-profit, intergovernmental sector, where I have been working for more than 15 years, always in the humanitarian contexts. And now lately, of course, our organization, as everybody understands, has been put in a real test on producing and translating science in order to save lives. And we disseminate these materials for the whole world. We have about 7 million learners on our online learning materials and much more in the country-based settings. Our primary targets are the low and middle income countries. And our work is based on equity, access, and those humanitarian principles where saving lives comes always as the first and foremost value. We do work a lot with the private sector. We outsource services a lot. In my team, I have a couple of MBAs. I've worked at the business school myself. So people here come with a very rich background from across the levels of the different organizations, and always with the internationally savvy nature, of course, sharing the same values and principles of protecting the most vulnerable. Really happy to be here and join the discussion on learning.
Thank you very much. I think the fact that we've got people in 4 countries on the panel and many more countries in the audience attest to the changes we've seen in the last couple of years alone. And I think I'd just like to pick up, and if I can start with Tim on this one, this really reinforces probably this question is, why is lifelong learning so important in the current climate?
Well, I think it's a no-brainer, so I hope my answer is not too boring. But basically, I think we're all aware that information and knowledge changes so fast. So if I take a look at the engineering and technical degrees, we all, at least in the educational space, are aware that when you start a 4-year degree, half of your knowledge is already outdated when you end your degree. So basically, there's no stopping in doing so. Or if I take a look at my own career, I started out recruiting COBOL programmers, or software engineers, which is a language from the computer language from the 70s. Still, there are some engineers recruited because no one speaks this language anymore, and some of the core systems in the financial industry still run on that. But now we're all into Python, and who knows what's next year. But that's only on the technical side. So it's not only that you need to upgrade your knowledge and skills, specifically also in higher education. I think it's really important that you understand how to manage knowledge, how to manage teams, and how to actually keep yourself a lifelong learner. So not only by, like myself, maybe changing industries or something like that, but really find a passion for moving into different areas of knowledge, because otherwise it wouldn't work for you if you just say, okay, I now need to learn this and that. There's no motivation in it. So I think that's even with today's climate in the industries and the talent we're looking for, it's very much more accepted and appreciated if you also switch, for example, in terms of disciplines, because everything's becoming more interlinked. So, well, I could go on forever, but basically it's very important. And so I'm a big fan of lifelong learning, as you can hear.
Thanks, Tim. Just picking up on that about employees. If I come to Heini, do you think, as a rule, employees or people you work with actually have this thirst for continual development?
Yeah, I do think so. There are various layers to it. It's both personal learning, but then also that more broader learning in the professional, across the professional areas and in the community. So each of us will face the work life change in one way or the other. So nobody retires from the same job that they started with. Nobody uses the same skill they started with, just as Tim said here before. But I think for us also, the take to lifelong learning is in the sector of health, where the health-related assets, knowledge, science also changes the whole time. And us who are providing the support function for that learning intervention in health, we ourselves also need to be abreast of the technologies, the change, how consumers of information or asset materials change. And this is a constant cycle. This is a constant way in which we have to be very open-minded and able to come with the solutions-oriented mindset. And I think many of the professionals in today's work life, we are just problem solvers. All of us, day in, day out, are solving problems of different types and magnitudes. And when this problem-solving, curious mindset is there, then I think the professional background actually makes much less of an importance. It's more of your personal skill that brings you to that next level, where you are ready, able, willing to take on a challenge in completely changing environment, not in a way that it burdens and wears us off, but more in a way that we are capable of solving these things that come on our desks every day. And that applies to every sector, I would say, and very visibly so to the health, where the workforce is growing from current 234 million into something doubling. So when the more developing countries also add up the, let's say, for the health workforce, the need for learning and learning related support functions, online learning, digitized solutions, medical assets, distribution in different means is going to change completely. And these kind of, all these sectors need that know how to solve problems and bring the new solutions.
Absolutely. Elisabetta, I wonder if we can just drill down on that a wee bit and talk specifically to the strategy in your organization to keep people learning, to keep people growing.
Absolutely. First of all, I fully agree that continuous learning is one of the most important items and asset in this moment, especially now, and also must be part of a kind of natural attitude of the talent we are looking for in the marketplace. Much more than, I agree with Heini, much more than the technical and professional skills. It's like taking this for granted, it's a kind of baseline. What can really make a difference is the attitude, especially now in Callaghan, but also I have to say in Lightsource PP. The culture of the company, the values, this new empathy, this getting back to humanities that is so strong, especially now, requires different attitudes from the talent we are looking for. So strong human values, strong ability to manage people, to stay close to people, to create and to develop strong relationship with the employees, with the internal and external customers, really understanding what they want, what they need, what they are motivated by. And I think, especially now, what we are looking for in the external marketplace is the cultural behavioral fit on top of course, of the technical skills.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's really important. If you're looking at technical capabilities, can the whole gambit of technical capabilities be covered, or is it more about mindset? And so, Tim, I just wonder if you can comment on then drilling down specifically to an MBA audience. What is it that organizations such as yourselves, at the cutting edge of technology as you are really looking at from MBA graduates?
Well, so maybe to comment on that and elaborate a little bit on the selection by culture and then willingness to learn, I can actually refer to my own recruiting process as ODA. And I think that also answers a little bit your question with regards to MBA graduates. So when I was hired, no one in this whole process actually asked me about my skills, because everyone can read my LinkedIn profile, and I never had that. So in the past, I was always asked, like, so what would you do in this situation? What would you do to solve our problem here or there? It was totally different. It was more about how I do things, how I think about leadership, how I think about talent acquisition, the relationship to the business, and I was more asked, what would you need from us to become successful, which also is a cultural thing. So that really made the trick for myself to join this company. And that is also something I will now apply a little bit stronger. We already have cultural interviews, which are part of every process, but we will even move the cultural part in the beginning of the process, because it's much easier to select by culture before you actually saw all the skills of someone. When you have the feeling that someone can really deliver immediately in terms of sales or technology, it's very difficult to then decline them just for cultural reasons. That being said, with MBA graduates, I forgot I lectured myself at business schools. So when I hire MBA graduates in positions. It's mainly, again, not for the technical skills, but also at MBAs, you usually learn more about how to behave in an ethical way, about compliance, about how to manage projects in a proper way, how to manage across borders. So it's all these kinds of things. And it might be different in other organizations, but at least in the ones I either led or where I'm part of, we always focused on these learning capabilities and what I would call more like meta skills, not really the technical aspects. Because MBA students, they have their background and their career already in engineering or anywhere else, and they join an MBA usually because they want to have these skills which help them moving into other areas. So why should we check for technical skills if they want to move into a different area or develop themselves anyway?
That's really interesting. And then Heini, you might, if you could comment on this, how then can those MBA graduates stand out in the recruitment market? If it's less now about what you've done and more about your mindset, how can you actually illustrate that to a potential employer and then stand out?
Yeah, really that intercultural competence plays in here. I would say that for instance, for the United Nations, we employ about 100,000 people globally. Would one like to work with the international organizations like ours? It's really to see the suitable background. Has the person ever studied any language? Is there any, now it's really pity that current times not all the students can do exchange studies in other countries, but also this kind of already study time interest towards mobility, understanding of teamwork in a quite complex settings where all the team members are from different countries. My team of 30 work everywhere from Costa Rica to Australia, from Senegal to China. And of course, handling this, like this is a common day for companies as well, being spread across the world. But how do you cultivate that environment of work where everyone can contribute in positively, respected, and in a culturally appropriate way? And I think this is the one thing that we measure in the United Nations, that the behaviors, attitudes, and competencies are such that one can suit for the international employment. And these are the kind of values and personal attributes that apply not only to the United Nations. I think it applies for everywhere and makes the candidate stand out when, for instance, in the interview or already in the application. I plowed through thousands of applications a year. We have a lot of applicants for all positions. Already the cover letter can actually give details of persons' commitment to this kind of international savviness. And that's something that I look, and I know all of the hiring managers around me are looking as well when we recruit the more junior professionals, but also those who come in their mid-careers, which is more and more popular now that the work transition is faster. So mobility of workforce is also quite fast. So we have people coming from different careers, for instance, in the logistics, in the area of human resources, in the area of support functions like ours, the learning. So this is really to say that I agree with both colleagues here that it is more than the technical competence. It's that adaptability of yourself into the context where everybody speaks differently to you. And I don't mean language. I mean everything that's behind there, our education systems, our past history, experience, and where we are coming from.
Excellent, thank you, Elisabetta. Just picking up on that, I mean, what we've been talking about here is very much, sort of MBA students coming out with a mindset. From what you're seeing from people coming to you, are those MBA students, as they're graduating, coming with what you're looking for from a business organization? So is there a good fit currently between what an MBA is and what the course is, and then what you're looking at from a business perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me tell you something about my experience. So I started massively recruiting MBAs almost 20 years ago. Oh my God. And so I have, let's say, I have seen a kind of evolution, no, of the MBA environment. And almost 20 years ago, the focus was on the what, no? And that time I already was clearly an out-of-the-box thinker, and I was looking on something different on top of the what: skills, competencies, experiences, assertiveness, how much you are aggressive, assertive, a kind of this kind of attitude. I was looking for what I called the sparkle in the eyes. And now, today, the sparkle in the eyes is related to the mindset, to the soft attitude, to your attitude towards people, and towards the people management aspect. This dimension is becoming more and more important, and I have to say that also the MBA schools have evolved accordingly. And it's normal because they are really very attentive to the external insight. So they have to capture what is happening outside and integrating these items into the curriculum, into the studies. And I have to say today, especially the young generation, young MBAs, young professional, they are so much more focused on sustainability, environmental protection, humanities, etc. So I see this evolution, and I see this reflected on the new generations of MBAs. So the schools are doing a great job, I think.
Excellent, thank you. Obviously, Tim, things are changing so fast, and I think your perspective here is excellent because you're both teaching and you're in business. But how do you see that a student, once they've graduated from the MBA, should stay up to date with trends and even sort of look to maintain that relationship with their business school?
Well, I think the last is really easy because they all got alumni networks, and they, at least the business schools I know, and I also not only teach, but I accreditate or part of accreditation agencies. They all manage those relationships actively because they have an interest in obviously gaining more students and showing the value of their degrees because their students made great careers. So that one I think is an easy one. How to stay up to date? Well, that answer really differs from what I say before. I think partly actually you can use your university or alma mater to do so, because they usually also have offerings in keeping you up to date, keep you connected with your alumni, fellow alumni. So you can learn through those networks. And the other basically is maybe, like anyone else, try to get some information from any kind of source you can get. That's pretty much it. So, and maybe do some more degrees.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure this audience would appreciate that for sure. Heini, just obviously no one's got a crystal ball, but sort of looking, let's say, the next 18 to 24 months, what do you see the opportunities and indeed some of the challenges that you will face as business leaders, and therefore MBA graduates as they come into the workplace will face?
Yeah, I really hope we get out of this pandemic so that the work routine, internships, the early careers can sort of become somewhat easier. That having said, I think this pandemic opens a splendid opportunity to join the workforce in different ways, digitized environments, where actually I've hired most of my team without seeing the people, the experts themselves face to face. So this is the reality already, and perhaps in the private sector it's been longer so. For us in the United Nations, it's definitely a novelty since 2 years, since this pandemic time. So I think there are new opportunities that are carved out from this pandemic environment. But then at the same time, I do hope that in the few years time we are able to return or go into that kind of a space where the career options are open also for new graduates to join the more routine career, not only hanging in there online working, which is work as well, like we all do, but there's also that other side to the work life where you actually at some points are present at work. And I hope we will be able to offer the options of returning to offices for those companies or businesses or organizations like ourselves, where eventually the offices are opening, and we also can have that coaching, mentoring, working together with people again. I think this is a really trying time for many young graduates who don't have that chance to join the work life in a way that it used to be. But I see also a lot of opportunities in this current setting where offices are dispersed and remote work is more norm than ever before. But this also requires, I think the new graduates have added value here, because everybody is so techie savvy, knows everything about every gadget, solutions, tools, everything, and that's definitely an added value that the younger generations now have, and should utilize that daringly, I would say.
I agree with that. And just picking up on that, Elisabetta, obviously, in this new environment, which elements will continue forward. I mean, we've all probably recruited people now who live a long way away from the office, so there probably won't be this overall return to the office. How do you think leadership, therefore, needs to be redesigned to manage, let's call it the new normal?
Yeah, I think that the leadership style will make a difference. It will be a fantastic and important element for the future, for a sustainable future. Honestly, I don't think we will get back to the old normal. No more. So I have the sense that this new normal will stay with us, maybe a little bit different, but will stay with us. And in this situation, also being very optimistic, what makes a difference is the ability of a leader to create strong relationship and valuable relationship also remotely, which is very difficult. So the most important and the most difficult thing in this moment is onboarding new people, providing them with a sense of belonging, the sense of entering an organization in which there are people interacting and they are welcome in a warm way, and there is a continuous connection. So leaders who can really manage these aspects will make a difference, and we will need leaders like that. And it's such a big difference if you think about the past, when a leader was the typical person with a lot of knowledge, decisive, and very, very straightforward, very assertive. And yes, people are important, but to a certain extent. Now, the equation is completely reversed. And people are the essential ingredients for a business to succeed. And so that's why I am a super supporter of the servant leadership concept. We need to become, all the young people entering in the business environment must become servant leaders and must develop a strong growth mindset to be successful and to make the company successful.
Excellent, I agree with that. Guys, we're getting into potentially giving some questions to the audience. If anyone's got any questions, could they put them into the swap card chat that you have access to? Meanwhile, Tim, I just wondered if you could share some of your thoughts on leadership in the new normal.
Yeah, so reflecting on what anyone else said, I think we are not in this, leaders you find today, there are still some who are very directive and know everything, but even if you take a look at different cultures, there are situations where it might be demanded that as a leader you need to know things, but if I'm still in introductory phase at ODA, so maybe I refer back to myself being a leader, and I try to meet, because everything's virtual currently due to the pandemic, try to meet all 20, 30 plus people in the team personally, somewhat. And my little speech always contains that my job as a leader is not that they are there to serve me, but actually it's this leadership you just mentioned, but it's my task to actually weigh obstacles for them, be there if there's a conflict, step in front of them if someone's actually, let's say, causing issues, and protect them and actually help them doing their work. In the past, it might be opposite, so everyone's working towards so that the manager could do his work. But for me, it's the totally opposite. So for me, it's I'm serving the team, and then the team has a great success, which is my success, and that also needs a certain, specifically in an agile environment, certain way of finding solutions and discussion. So you also need to create, I don't like the word, but you need to create a safe space so where everyone can express his opinion. So it's again something I let them know, and that's something I can talk, but they really need to experience that it is that way. So you can always call me an idiot or an asshole, not in front of other people's, but I'm very happy if you just disagree with me, because if everyone agrees with me, no one's really thinking. So that's basically, it's also, again, in the past, it has been that spoiled your reputation as a leader. But and then I might stop on my personal experiences, but it's something I also learned in India. So in India, for example, and it might be a prejudice, but there you still need to show as a leader that you know everything. That was at least what I experienced there. And it was really hard for me because I don't know much. And I just came out of such an introductory meeting, and I said, well, because this person actually said to me, yeah, I want to work for someone who I can be looking up to. And I said, yeah, you might, but maybe not in terms of knowledge and know-how, because you are close to the customer and you are in all the details. You can ask me about these things. I just don't know those, and it's not my task to know those things. So you need to let go loose.
Excellent, thank you. Just one for all of you. Just some questions from the audience now. We've got Marika from the University of Monaco. The changes we've all spoken about, how would you see, and maybe sort of a couple of points from each of you, the curriculum of an MBA changing to meet these requirements, both in leadership and skill set development, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe a couple of suggestions on the curriculum from each of you, starting with Heini.
Yeah, I do second all these previous comments by Tim and Elisabetta here to say that it is those human real skills, those soft skills, or what some people call soft skills, but are the real skills, that those you never can have enough. And I think if we are always in the competitive environment where grades and A pluses and all that matter, then the education system might then hamper each and everyone from achieving that kind of collegiality where you actually, by supporting one another, you make better results. And that's something that we have in the work life. The better we perform together, the better results. And I think education systems, starting from the primary education to the higher education, should also take this approach into account. And I think many education systems do. But globally speaking, I think the focus of the education system that might have been developed from the Bismarckian Germans' industrial production mode is completely gone. And therefore, even this grading system doesn't work any longer. I think it's more that of the motivation, inner burn of enthusiasm and openness and willingness to innovate and solve things as they come. And that is something difficult to do perhaps in a curriculum format, but these are the kind of overall objectives and aims that I would change into any formal curriculum if it was in my powers. And that will definitely have a positive implications to the work life and how we all be the better employer, leader, colleague at the workplace.
Lovely. Elisabetta, any thoughts on curriculum changes you would like to see on an MBA course?
Yeah, and I fully agree with Heini. So all the extracurricular activities, experiences are very important, especially now. Everything can be related to your ability to develop and nurture a network, regardless of the network, of the environment. So staying in contact with people and developing good relationship, building on that. So networking is so important. And also being consistent with your interest. So if you have an interest, you have also to demonstrate you are pursuing this interest. You are putting in place some actions to stay close to this interest and to build on that. So it is really important for the MBAs now to make sure they could transmit and reflect this human dimension again that they surely have, but probably in the past was not considered so important. And now it's at least equally important.
Excellent, thank you. And Tim, any thoughts for you on curriculum change?
Well, maybe not to repeat everything everyone else said. When I take a look at the curriculums I accredited, there's plenty of McKinsey case studies all the time, which totally makes sense to have case studies, so work practically. But in these case studies, most often you see some examples on how great things work. So same like the cultures in the companies are changing to a more agile and learning from mistakes culture. I would like to see in the curriculums much more failures, which are discussed rather than how things went well. Because you don't learn much, you just learn how it went well in that situation, and that's pretty much it. So that would be one thing which I would really like to see differently, other than all the other stuff we just mentioned.
Excellent. Yes, the Michael Jordan approach. Just from each of you again, I'd really like to sort of get a feel for your view of the future in terms of, are you optimistic about the future of business, and maybe a 5-year view, a 10-year view, and even longer view from that? So, Heini?
Sure, I'm very positive and optimistic about all of our future forward-looking careers plans going forward. I think the only thing that is drastically changing now is that we have to plan for many careers, many educations, many skill sets, many different type of a context also, and also moving from different type of a context to another. And this is something that puts the challenge up. We will also be working longer as the life span gets longer. The retirement age is always a little bit further away, and that actually gives that cycle also to the careers and our work life, to say that there are those tasks that you do more as a junior normally, but then from your mid-career onward, you can probably divert to many different directions, even to charities, even to different types of new experiments in completely other types of employments that you are familiar with. And I think this is the promise that the more globalized way of working provides us, and especially those MBAs who already had the sound capability from the knowledge point of view. The training and education has provided the foundation from which it's easy to go as a generalist to many different directions and contexts. So I think I'm very optimistic, and of course we don't know what the future will hold. Us in the World Health Organization, we are afraid of more pandemics, which we hope will not come to our way, but we hope that we are all resilient enough to be able to build that ability to work together despite the complexities like now.
Excellent, thank you. Elisabetta, what's your level of optimism for business for the future?
I am very optimistic because this pandemic has been, of course, a tragedy, but also taught us very important things. So we have learned to work effectively outside the comfort zone. Some new skills and abilities are finally valued and really appreciated in terms of importance and effectiveness, and people have really learned to focus on what is really critically important for them, for the community, for the company. And resiliency, I agree. So we are so much more resilient, especially young people. They had to learn to reinvent their environment, to stay connected, to be able to take advantage of some circumstances that should be normal in the life of a young individual. And so they have learned to be resilient and to be innovative and to be creative, and all of that components will be very, very important in the next future. And that's why I feel very, very optimistic.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Well, we've got just a few seconds left now, so I'd like to thank all of our panelists for a fascinating discussion. Certainly in terms of lifelong learning, if there's any benefit from what we've been through, lifelong learning has benefited. So thank you very much.